welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're diving into something seriously cinematic, a deeply mysterious piece of mystical history. We're looking at a fascinating textual analysis prepared by Karakaş titled Lilith, a Symbol of Defiance. And look, this isn't just your standard mythology breakdown, okay? This is a mind-ending journey into how a single terrifying figure of ancient folklore was totally transformed by generations of mystics to explain the actual mechanics of cosmic exile and ultimate redemption. It's an absolutely wild ride, so let's just get right into it. So here's our roadmap for today. First, the roots of the dark feminine. Then, Lurianic Kabbalah, the parasite. 3, Sabbatianism, descent into darkness. 4, Konyozos, the vanishing shadow. And finally, gematria, the mathematics of redemption. Now, to really grasp the mystical mechanics here, we've got to understand the primal fear first. Lilith is basically the oldest, most tenacious female demon in Jewish tradition. Just listen to this passage from the book of Isaiah, which, by the way, is her only mention in the entire Tanakh. It describes the desolate, completely ruined landscape of Edom, and right there, it establishes her as the ultimate outsider, the winged demon of the ruins. For the ancient world, her dwelling was literally the ontological opposite of a home, of the temple, of any kind of civilized order. Which brings us to section 1, Roots of the Dark Feminine, the Ancient Origins. So before the mystics got a hold of her, she was this terrifying figure in Sumerian and Akkadian lore. You might know texts like the medieval alphabet of Ben Sira, where she's the first Eve who demands equality and flies off to the Red Sea. But the real game changer, that happens in the Zohar. The Zohar literally elevated Lilith from a mere child-stealing night demon to a massive cosmic counterstation. It introduces the staggering idea of a wrong marriage. Basically, it suggests that while the divine queen, the Shekinah, is stuck in exile alongside the suffering people of Israel, the divine king is actually consorting with Lilith. She becomes this dark mirror of the divine feminine. And pretty much every subsequent mystical school we're about to look at is just desperately trying to solve the problem of this terrifying Zoharic image. Moving on to section 2, Lurianic Kabbalah, the parasite. To really unpack this, we need to quickly define two dense but absolutely crucial terms. The first is Shavirat HaKalim, or the breaking of the vessels. In this specific cosmology, early in creation, the vessels that were meant to hold divine light basically shattered because the light was just way too intense. So the holy sparks fell into the debris. And that debris is our second term, the klipa, or the husk. Lilith is conceptualized as the feminine face of this entire dark realm of debris. Now think about the relationship between a parasite and its host. It's actually amazing how Lurianic thought frames this whole dynamic. The most defining characteristic of Lilith in this framework is that she has no light of her own, literally zero. She only survives by siphoning off those holy sparks trapped in the husks. Her entire ontological status is just parasitism. Because of that, the Lurianic solution is Havdalah, separation. The ultimate goal for humanity and the Messiah is to carefully extract those holy sparks so the husk is just emptied out entirely. Think about it. Without the holy sparks to feed on, the parasite starves and collapses. So you fight the darkness by completely separating yourself from it. That takes us to section 3, Sabbatianism, descent into darkness. Now, the Sabbatians took things in a wildly different direction. They made this stark distinction between two states of being. On one side, you have the Torah of prohibition. These are the rules, the strict boundaries, the laws that govern our current broken world of exile. But on the other side is the Torah of liberation, which belongs to the redeemed, fully unbroken world. For the Sabbatians, the only way to rescue those trapped sparks wasn't by carefully tiptoeing around the husks like the Lurianic school thought. No way. They believed the Messiah actually had to descend directly into the realm of transgression, right into Lilith's kingdom to gather those sparks from the inside out. Basically, the Redeemer has to get their hands dirty. And to justify this totally radical theology, they pointed to an astonishing piece of gematria. Gematria, if you're not familiar, is the Jewish mystical tradition of assigning numerical value to words. Well, it turns out the Hebrew word for Messiah and the word for serpent both equal exactly 358. I mean, wow. For the Sabbatians, this mathematical link was hard proof that the Redeemer's true homeland, his native place of exile, was actually the serpent's realm, Lilith's exiled kingdom. The idea is you don't defeat her by starving her from the outside, you conquer her from within. All right, section 4, Konyozos, the vanishing shadow. The Konyozos perspective brings in this brilliant metaphor of two distinct trees. On one hand, we have the tree of knowledge of good and evil, right, which represents a world of divisions, boundaries, and prohibitions. Lilith, as a concept, lives entirely in the shadow of this specific tree. Her existence completely relies on the boundary between good and evil. I mean, a parasite needs a boundary to transgress in order to feed. But on the other hand, there's the tree of life. This represents pure light, unity, and a state totally beyond all prohibitions. Think of it kind of like physics. A shadow can only exist in the interval between two light sources. When those trees unite, when the pure, blinding light of the tree of life takes over, the shadow just evaporates. So the absolutely crucial takeaway in this final mystical stage is that Lilith isn't some monster to be defeated anymore. Instead, she is rendered totally meaningless. When that conceptual boundary between good and evil is finally lifted, the parasite has absolutely nothing left to cling to. It's a profound shift, really, moving from fighting your demons to simply outgrowing the entire paradigm in which they even exist. Which leads us to our final section, Section 5, Gematria, Mathematics of Redemption. Okay, it all revolves around this specific number, 480. When you add up the standard spelling of Lilith's name in Hebrew, 480 is the exact numerical value you get. 480 is essentially the cosmic code of Lilith, the ultimate shadow of exile. And let me show you why this number is just so staggering. Just look at the equation we've got here. Samael is the male counterpart to Lilith in the demonic realm, and his numerical value is 131. If you add Samael to Lilith, which again is 480, you get exactly 611. So why does 611 matter? Because 611 is the numerical value of the word Torah, and it gets deeper. According to Talmudic tradition, out of the 613 commandments, exactly 611 were mediated through Moses, while the other two were heard directly from the divine. This math implies something truly breathtaking. It suggests that the 611 mediated laws of our broken world are literally being held hostage, surrounded by this dark couple, until the Messiah, who, remember, carries the serpent's number of 358, descends to unlock them. And that number, 480, it appears historically in these fascinating ways that perfectly mirror Lilith's identity as the Lady of the Ruins. Ancient texts actually record that exactly 480 synagogues were destroyed in Jerusalem. Not only that, but the Book of Kings tells us it took exactly 480 years from the Exodus to the building of Solomon's temple. So 480 is the span of the holy dwelling's construction, but it is also the number of the demon of homelessness. When the temple stands, 480 is the number of the holy house. But when it's ruined, Lilith, number 480, moves right in. It's this perfect, almost eerie cosmic mirror. Even the very spelling of her name is deeply symbolic. Notice how the Hebrew spelling of Lilith totally lacks an aleph. Now, aleph is the first letter of the alphabet, and it represents divine unity and beginnings. Her name is woven entirely from middle and final letters. It's essentially structural proof of her rootless, parasitic existence. She has no divine beginning of her own. Her name even repeats the letters from mine, sealing her identity as the usurper, the one who falsely claims the divine station in the darkness of exile. So let's bring this all together. What we've just walked through is the incredible theological evolution of a single, potent symbol. We started with the Lurianic view, where the darkness is a parasite we have to carefully separate ourselves from. Then we shifted into the Sabbatian view, or the darkness is a realm of exile that the Redeemer must courageously descend into. And finally, we reached the Konyozos view, where the darkness is really just a shadow that evaporates the very moment the boundaries of prohibition are lifted. A symbol escalated from a demon to be fought, to a darkness to be embraced, and ultimately to an illusion to be transcended. Which leaves us with this final provocative thought to chew on. Throughout history, humanity has constantly personified its fears. Fears of the dark, of the ruins, of the vast unknown. But what happens when the ancient darkness we fear so deeply is revealed to be nothing more than a temporary shadow cast by our own boundaries? What happens when the monsters we fight only actually exist because we feed them with our own divisions? It completely reframes how we look at fear, at spirituality, and honestly at our own inner workings. That wraps up our deep dive today. I want to once again acknowledge the truly profound source text prepared by Karakaş that made this entire explainer possible. If you enjoyed tracing these mystical mechanics of history with us, keep questioning those shadows, and we will catch you on the next explainer.